For better or worse, we as Americans are nothing if not absolutely stubborn and stuck in our ways. So much so that many may be surprised to find out the official unit of measurement in the United States is actually the metric system. While this is a fact, it obviously hasn't replaced the imperial system in practice, but the way it was implemented was and still is an ever-evolving process stemming back to the 1800s. Now, I'll be honest, history is not my strong suit, and I've been making strides in studying on my own leisurely schedule to fix that. So while a lot of this video might be common knowledge for some, if it's not common knowledge for you, then let's take a few minutes to learn something new together. Now, I have no intention of this video being a long, drawn-out history lesson, but I do want to cover the basics of what led us to where we are now. So let's start at the beginning in 1866. The world was still figuring things out, and international standards were becoming more streamlined and adopted. The US noticed the rapidly growing international adoption of the metric system, and with the goal of simplifying trade and communication, Congress passed the Metric Act of 1866. A very important detail about this law, there was no mandate or requirement for anyone to actually use the metric system. The primary purpose here was to allow the metric system to be used in trade, and the imperial system remained untouched for the time being. Fast forward over 100 years to the 1970s, most of the world has adopted the metric system by this time to include both countries directly above and below our borders, with Canada adopting the metric system around this same time. Now, the US was determined yet again to try and adopt the metric system as a standard, and Congress passed the Metric Conversion Act in 1975. They also created a metric board to promote transitioning voluntarily, but like before in 1866, there were no mandates to do so. Now, even though there were no requirements, this conversion push enacted an experiment. Nearly 40,000 miles of interstate had been constructed already by the 1970s, with the imperial system as the standard. But a brand new interstate in Arizona was set to be built with a plot twist. Interstate 19 was set to be the first interstate in the United States built around the metric system. This was a bold announcement with a mixed response, as you would expect. The metric system, while commonplace in the rest of the world, was unfamiliar to the American public, and no real benefit was initially seen. But plans stayed in motion, fully riding on the coattails of the Metric Conversion Act, and successfully completed construction in 1978. The interstate that connected Tucson, Arizona to Nogales at the Mexican border opened with signage that was generally functional, and most drivers, especially the locals living close to Mexico, didn't have any trouble adapting. The style, font, color, and all other highway standards remained the same, only instead of lonely numbers, these numbers were nice and cozy with their new KM counterparts. With a slew of positives, there's always drawbacks. With the rest of the country still on the imperial system, cars on the road all had primarily mile-per-hour speedometers, and a lack of experience with the metric system caused confusion for drivers, especially those traveling from out of state. Now, the plan with this interstate, supposedly, is that if the pilot had gone well, it was to retrofit all the roads in the US to the metric system as part of a grand conversion in the shape of Interstate 19's template. You don't have to go very far or investigate this to find out how that worked out. As a result of a lack of funding and most drivers feeling indifferent at best, this push fizzled out. But maybe the most unexpected thing about all of this, those metric road signs on Interstate 19 are still there to this day. They never reverted them back. There's still a set of signs that try and warn you of the lack of freedom units moving forward, and there have been no talks about changing back to Imperial, due mainly to the high cost of replacement, and locals claim they have historical significance. This is true irony. This plan failed mainly because things have always been this way, so why should we change it? And now it's being preserved because things have always been this way, so why change it? Like, you can't make this up. The story of I-19 highlights some interesting takeaways. Moving to the metric system was an obvious choice, given the majority of the rest of the world is already using it, but cultural inertia, cost, and public sentiment can stall even the most common sense changes. There are logical reasons behind this, such as cost versus benefit debates, and there are, we'll say, emotional reasons with an overall resistance to change. In a way, it's what makes the United States the United States. We were founded on rebellion, we're stubborn, but it has led to outcomes that, for better or worse, make us a truly unique country, and I personally am proud of that.